Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of
Gato.
episode 14.
Hey, yeah.
Actually, it's episode 14 on the 15th of May. I know that's not really related, but I don't know, it's funny, like 14, 15, like 16, 17. Sorry, I just noticed that. So hello everybody and welcome. My name is Hans.
I'm Edward.
And we're your hosts for now and forevermore.
For the foreseeable future.
So how are you doing, Edward?
I'm good. Just tired. This lockdown is getting to me.
I must be honest. I really do think that the tiredness is a real thing for lockdown. Being kept in like captivity kind of thing. I mean, I do know that like strange dreams and things are part and parcel of being in lockdown. I don't know. Have you had anything weird? Because I certainly have.
I haven't had any strange dreams. I've just not been sleeping. What have you had?
No, I'm not gonna talk about that right
now.
We'll
racy dreams.
We'll save that for another episode.
Ooh,
but
okay.
What we can talk about is what we can do in the meantime while in lockdown to possibly have some stress relief.
Okay.
And I know for those of you listening, you're thinking, "Yeah, I know what I can do for stress relief." No, I'm not talking about that. Okay.
Okay.
We don't have any of that in this episode. Well, stay tuned, and you may very well actually realize we do, like always. but anyway,
spoiler.
Essentially, it turns out that gardening actually has an effect on your emotional well-being. To the point of it releases similar endorphins and good feelings as biking, walking, and dining out.
That's actually cool.
Look, I guess
cool.
It is. It's just, I don't know, weird to me because we live in a small apartment, okay? And we don't have much space. Before this, we had a massive home with a beautiful garden, and I'll admit that I never really appreciated it. Now, my mom has taken it upon herself to absolutely take care of these small gardens that we have. And she loves it. And I just personally don't really understand it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like greenery. I like plants. And I do enjoy flowers. I think they're beautiful. But I've never been one to have a green finger and to tend these plants.
Well, I've always heard that doing gardening makes you feel good, but I've never known exactly why. I thought it's just a state of mind. Like if you like gardening, you'll feel good afterwards.
It's a very interesting piece of research at the moment because they've shown that in addition to making you feel good and it actually releasing endorphins, one of the, I think, best parts of gardening is that it actually takes place outside of racial and socio-political norms. Which is incredibly interesting, because it means that, perhaps you might not have the economic means to go hiking because you don't, or cycling. But if you have a garden, it actually has exactly the same benefits.
And the best part of all is you don't need a green garden outside you walk out to. You can have a little pot, like a half a meter long pot, and just do your gardening in there.
That's exactly it. You can grow some herbs. Wink, wink. Which will definitely make you feel good.
That releases an entirely different kind of...
I wonder if the research wasn't skewed in that regard.
I doubt it, but I bet people will.
No, look, it was proper good research. It was done by Princeton's Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And it's fascinating. Essentially, it doesn't matter if you garden alone or with others, that didn't make a difference. But apparently people who kept vegetable gardens reported a very high level of average emotional well-being than people with ornamental gardens. So I suppose in that respect, if you're going to garden and produce produce, I can imagine that would be quite self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
Imagine planting some tomatoes, watching them grow, and then the satisfaction of eating them.
Yeah.
So it actually makes a lot of psychological sense for why it's good psychological well-being. Given how we're all in lockdown, I can imagine most of us might even plant some potatoes. Not just for the fact that potatoes are delicious and can be used for anything, but if you want to make your own vodka.
Yeah. Is it even legal? I'm curious.
Well, I don't see why not. I mean,
Yeah.
look, for those who might not know, in South Africa, the lockdown regulations specify that alcohol and tobacco are not allowed to be sold. So naturally, people are resorting to some unusual endeavors, such as, taking potatoes and trying to turn them into
making
vodka,
vodka.
for example.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the reason I'm asking if it's legal, I know in the States, or I believe it's in the States, there is a federal law that require all vodkas to be distilled to taste the same way.
What?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
an NPR facilitated lab study that proved how there is literally no discernible taste between different kinds of vodkas, different brands.
Oh, hold on. So you're saying me, Joe Soap, who decides to have some bootlicker vodka, right?
Yeah.
It'll taste the same as like a Grey Goose?
If you want to sell it and have it sold in the United States, yes.
That's fascinating because
That's
that
weird.
essentially means that it doesn't matter what kind of vodka you buy.
Yes.
It's all exactly the same.
Exactly. So instead of paying an arm and a leg for Grey Goose, go buy the nearest Russian vodka and you'll be fine. You'll still have the exact same taste.
That's wow. I wonder if any other alcohol is like that. Like I personally enjoy whiskey. That would be my go-to if I was to choose to have something during lockdown. And I know firsthand, and I know that many other whiskey drinkers out there will agree that whiskey has distinctive tastes, and a cheap whiskey doesn't taste anything like an expensive whiskey.
Yes.
So that's fascinating. So all vodka, at least within the United States,
Yep.
is exactly the same. Well, our American listeners, if you're hearing this, now you know. Just buy the cheapest ass vodka you can find,
It's all
and
a
it'll
placebo,
be exactly
man.
the same.
It's all a placebo.
Well, I mean, other than, making the alcohol yourselves at home, I can imagine that the reason why you might need alcohol is because of partners possibly cheating on you.
Oh boy. Going in
Edward,
deep today.
follow us into the next topic, please.
Well, as we all know, we've been in this COVID thing for a few months now. If you haven't, welcome to the reality of the current day.
Hello, 2020, who dis?
Yeah, hello. And South Korea and all these Asian countries are all doing their part. Now, South Korea specifically, they have a tracing app that is so effective at tracing COVID-19 cases that they can actually catch partners cheating.
What?
Yes, it's quite insane. So I learned about this in a documentary called "The Country That Beat the Virus." It's actually a British Channel 4 documentary.
Yeah.
And in it they detail how South Korea has acted really quickly about getting the advanced tracking apps and systems in place to make sure that the country stays
and
as
the
safe as
social
possible.
distancing and the lockdown, things like that. They were like one of the first to actually enact all of this stuff. Yeah.
Now this app is a tool that records everywhere a person has visited, and literally the tiniest of differences in the usual paths get recorded.
So building on that, because I've actually I've heard about this and I've read a little bit about it, but I haven't watched it like Edward has. But my understanding is that they actually, like, the way the alert system works is if you walk past someone, right, you'll get a notification that says male 58 was a banker, pass in this area, visit this hotel during these times, and then went to the cinema. So essentially, if you piece the dots together,
like,
like, baby,
honey,
what were you doing? Yeah. Why were you at the cinema during 2 to 5 instead of being at work?
Yeah.
Or this hotel. Why did you stop at this hotel midday?
exactly. Like something's off.
Now, with that in mind, I mean, aren't the people like worried about their privacy? I mean, isn't that like a major invasion of what you're doing? Look. Honestly speaking, if you're an honest person, you really don't have to worry about it. Like, I frankly don't care. If people
Yeah.
want to track me, let them track me. I'm not
Exactly.
doing anything illegal. But with that said, there's a greater argument to be had of police states and surveillance. So, I mean, how are the people responding to this
That's
in
the
South
weird
Korea?
thing, because usually Koreans are super private. They are a nation that pride themselves in privacy and safety above all else.
Yes,
But for some reason, they're super cool with this unprecedented tracking technology, purely because of the health aspect of it.
I would imagine because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
I mean, you would rather know your chances of being affected
Exactly.
versus versus getting it accident. Yeah, actually, you know what? That makes sense.
Yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Like obviously, before the COVID thing, there is this stereotype that all Asians wear masks, and if you travel to South Korea, you would have seen that many South
Yes.
Koreans wore masks well before we even knew about the novel coronavirus.
Correct.
And I think that mentality just translated perfectly into this tracking software.
Well, look, what's interesting about this is that we actually had something similar in South Africa. Now, not to the extent that South Korea has had it. I mean, this whole thing of being able to pinpoint where you've been at what hours of the day and then you being notified.
Mm.
I know that the South African governments did approach all of the network operators to release tracking information for all citizens. And that way they could track people who have the disease and who they've possibly come in contact with. But it wasn't to the point where, like, I'm getting a notification because the person next door somehow went to, the groceries.
Yeah.
Or something,
some
to
motel
that effect.
somewhere.
But, I mean, could you imagine? I mean, just imagine this now, Edward, because you're in a relationship, right, at the moment. And I'm not, hashtag forever alone. And now imagine, like, you're sitting at home and your phone pings and it's like, this person has went to this hotel between 2 and 4.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you do?
You are near this person and this is their travel history for the day. And I'll be like, okay, thank you for letting me know.
Would you lose your temper? Would there be like a bit of a shouting match?
A shouting match. Okay, so listen, I kind of blank out when I get angry. So
okay.
That's
right. You're one of those people.
Yeah.
You go into a blind rage.
So I suspect they would be shouting, yes.
Well, with that in mind, and since we're talking about coronavirus, there's brand new research that just came out, and it's a little bit shocking. And it almost ties directly into this because, I mean, naturally, like you're saying, if you had to find out about like your spouse doing something awful like that, there would be a shouting match. Well, as it so happens, and this is really like strange, loud speech, right?
Yeah.
Can transmit the coronavirus.
What?
Of all the, of all the things.
Wait.
Talking loudly.
So me talking into this mic might be a hazard for the people around me?
Well, if you're shouting into the mic, which I don't think you are, but if you look, having said that, I can imagine that us laughing like we're laughing now, right?
Yeah.
And the way we're talking would possibly contribute to it. I mean, this mic is most likely filled with my mucus right
Your
now.
bacteria
or
stuff,
my bacteria.
where-
It'll contain droplets of whatever's in my saliva.
That makes sense.
So apparently this new study has found that if you speak really loudly, and I presume this would be from like shouting or just, generally exclaiming in delight or whatever the case is, over 1,000 coronavirus containing droplets actually enter the air and they can linger there for over 8 minutes.
That's crazy.
As if it wasn't bad enough to think that the virus can just be on things. If you apparently shout now or scream, you actually cause the virus to remain airborne for almost 10 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, it's fascinating. So basically, if you're out in public and people be screaming, you better get out of there.
Well, to be fair, it makes sense because when you're coughing, all you do is you're exuding air from your lungs.
Correct.
And it's the
correct.
same with talking.
Yes, you're 100% correct. And look, of course, it's not just normal talking, right? And I can imagine this is why there's been so much of a push to wear masks.
Mhm.
Because, if you're wearing a mask, regardless of whether you're coughing or talking loudly, you're preventing the spread. Not completely, but at least, 90% of the virus remains within the mask.
Yeah.
So apparently it's just talking loudly. Like, you don't even have to shout. I actually thought that it was shouting and screaming, but apparently, like, I guess now that you've mentioned speaking into the microphone, all I can think of is what is this microphone catching?
No one better be touching that mic.
Well, I mean, look, just to put that into perspective, apparently 1 milliliter of oral fluid, which is like nothing, okay, contains 7 million copies of the coronavirus.
Wow. If you've got it.
If you've got it, yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not now if
Asterix.
you just...
Yeah, like-
But I mean, that just puts it into perspective. I mean, imagine just generally if we weren't so attuned to what's happening around us because of coronavirus. What if you just had the flu? Or what if you had something else? Any other viral infection? It just shows you how quickly these things can spread. I mean,
That's
look,
crazy.
coronavirus is a bit different. It is highly contagious. So
Yes.
it is in a class of its own. But just in general, how like not even 6 months ago, you wouldn't even think twice about speaking loudly if you were not feeling great.
Exactly, yeah. You'd be all up in each other's faces and...
So we've determined that just talking loudly is enough. And of course, we've mentioned, that if you had to have like a screaming match with someone, that would probably be even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot worse. Speaking of screaming, well, did you know that the loudest ever scream was shouted by an Irish teacher? And
Of
it was
course
the
it would
word...
be a teacher.
Of course. And it was the word quiet at 121 decibels.
What?
So talk about loud. That's jet engine loud.
121 decibels. Is that even humanly possible?
Apparently. Like,
Jeez.
you should realize that obviously decibels, a jet engine is super loud and it brawls
Yes,
and
but
okay,
this
and
is
roars.
equivalent to a jet engine.
Yes, so the pitch,
120 decibels.
it's all about the pitch, and
Jeez.
apparently it's possible, and it's weird. That's ear shattering.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Hey?
If she went on for 30 seconds, someone would have possibly died. So,
I'm sorry, we shouldn't be. But so just to put this into perspective, okay, in terms of the way the human ear functions and the kinds of sounds we can hear, all right, anything over 60 decibels is considered loud. Now,
Yeah.
at 60 decibels, we're talking about normal conversation or dishwashers, all right?
Mhm.
Above that, so 60 and above, or let's say 70 and above, we're talking about alarm clocks, traffic, and vacuum cleaners. That's not considered loud.
yeah,
This lady screamed at 121.
double that. Double what is
That
considered
is-
loud.
Phenomenally loud.
Yep.
I wonder if the reason why they picked this up is because people in other classrooms were wondering what the hell was going on.
Possibly. Like, listen, bitch, what are you up to? You're breaking our kids' ears.
Listen, it's look, according to like levels of noise, it's above very loud, so it's considered uncomfortable. And it's
Exactly.
just below painful and dangerous, which is considered an ambulance or a gunshot. I mean, that is... You know what this makes you think of? This makes you think of what we spoke about in episode 2 with the sperm whales that can actually emit a sound enough to kill people.
Pretty much. That's exactly it.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, jeez. And again, I'm sorry, I don't know where my mind is going the whole time, but like, so a sperm whale can kill you. This lady has the voice that can kill you. What other
I
sounds
get what
are
you're
there
getting
from
at.
what other sounds are there possibly from the ocean that could, have an impact
Well, maybe
on us?
maybe our overlords from the deep.
Are you talking about Cthulhu?
I'm talking about Cthulhu, yes.
Ah, Cthulhu.
Well, on that note, it reminds me of something else that I came across
Yeah.
this week.
Yeah.
Apparently, the first church of Cthulhu is a real thing.
No,
Yes.
man.
No. I read a bunch of super ARB websites, and one of them is boingboing.com. And one of their writers
What
became
the
an
hell?
ordained priest for the first Church of Cthulhu.
Can you can you just oh my gosh. Okay, that's perfect icebreaker conversation material, because could you just imagine going somewhere and people are like, "Oh, what's unique about you?" I mean, you'd be like, "Oh, well, I'm ordained in the Church of
Yeah,
Cthulhu
well,
and I
yes,
can
I'm a priest underneath the head priest of Cthulhu. I come from the first Church of Cthulhu. Yog Sothoth guide you.
What?
So this guy, he's a writer. His name is Tom Dunn from Boing Boing, and
Yeah.
he used to be ordained in another church. I forgot the name, and he wanted to ordain a wedding in his home state of Massachusetts, and
Okay.
apparently you need a certificate of ordainship like on the day, and his old church just didn't reply to his mails or something. So
Okay.
he Googled and found the first Church of Cthulhu online, and for the low price of $20, the head priest of the first Church of Cthulhu would send you a signed ordainship through the mail. And that's how he became an ordained priest
No.
for this church.
But hold on. So you mean to tell me that in order to be able to marry someone in the United States, you simply need to be ordained, and it doesn't matter what you're ordained with?
As well, I suppose the actual governing body of the church is registered somewhere in the official government archives or whatever. But yes, all you need to do as a person is become a registered priest or pastor for a church, and he did for this.
I'm sorry. This is ridiculous.
It's amazing. It's I've never heard of this before. And what's even better is that the website for the church, they also offer sample marriage vows in
What?
in the theme of Cthulhu. So
Please tell me you're going to read them to us.
well, I have 2 here, but okay, let me read. Yog Sothoth knows the gate. Yog Sothoth is the gate. Yog Sothoth is the key and guardian of the gate. Past, present, future, all are one in Yog Sothoth. And so it is that today we are gathered here to unite being number one and being number two, in brackets, as one. These rings are a symbol of Yog Sothoth's congeries of iridescent globes. His malign suggestiveness is now also their malign suggestiveness. These rings are the key and guardian. The gate is their future together. Let all behold them as they enter into a world of new tomorrows, knowing that no old ones may break them apart nor tread them asunder. And there you go.
I'm sorry. This is, please, I don't mean to be insensitive to anyone who is a follower of Cthulhu, but this is just I mean, I know there are a lot of things out there, okay? And I know that you can even be ordained into like the official Jedi religion, and I think there's a Star Trek one as well. But Cthulhu?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm even saying it properly now out of respect, okay? Because I normally say Cthulhu.
These vows have changed you, Hans. Yeah, no,
listen. I think we have to ordain you in this. I feel that it should be like a Vamer's perk, and you can then be like ordained by Cthulhu.
Then I can go and officially ordain other marriages around the world in the church's name.
Oh my gosh,
it's
jeez.
And you even get a certificate and everything. It's quite cool.
Look, I'm assuming if you're ordained in this church or whatever, religion or faith you subscribe to, that you could also use it for funerals, right? For death?
I don't know. So you can officiate weddings. I bet you have some power over funerals as well. Yes.
Oh, look, it must be. I mean, I imagine so, because, if you can do marriages, you should be able to do funerals. At least that's the
Exactly.
logic behind it.
Yeah, I get that.
Well, look, with this in mind, I've got to bring up something that one of our listeners by the name of Vicard sent in. And it has to do with Animal Crossing. So in a previous episode, we actually spoke about Animal Crossing weddings and how, people abroad, because of COVID-19 and lockdown, have had to cancel a lot of things. So friends and family are getting together and, allowing them to celebrate just in a digital fashion.
Yes.
Well, it works just as much for life as it does for death. And it's a bit of a somber story that Vicard sent in. And it's about an Animal Crossing New Horizons funeral, whereby a young avid gamer by the name of Brandon Perez, who was only 23, actually passed away from COVID-19.
Oh, that's bad.
Now, yeah, it's very, very sad. It's terrible. Now, if anyone is familiar with what's going on, depending on your country, you'll know that because of lockdown scenarios, you aren't even allowed to attend funerals. Like in South Africa, it is restricted to close family only, and you actually have to apply for a certificate in order to attend.
And on top of that, you're not allowed to have more than 50 people there as well.
Correct. So this poor young man passed away from COVID-19, and so what his friends actually did is they got together in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and they held a funeral for him.
That's actually super cool.
I think it's beautiful, to be perfectly honest with you.
Mm.
We are in that point of our lives in 2020 where a lot of things have become digital. Now, it's one thing to have an event like this be digital versus actually being able to embrace someone, and hug them when they need it.
Yeah.
But at least it's a small consolation, I would imagine.
It's actually super nice. It reminds me of a
beautiful
thing that happened in Guild Wars 2, where we all joined a memorial for one of our guildmates. Well, not our guildmates, for a prominent member of the community. And we all just stood around and listened to all these friends talk about him. It was quite cool.
That's definitely something that I absolutely really appreciate about gaming communities around the world. Is even though we're all different, gaming really is that singular commonality, especially in the digital age, that can bring people together.
Yeah.
Whether it's through a wedding, as we've previously spoken about, or now through funerals, or even just to honor people who may have fallen in other ways, or to raise people up. Gaming serves a lot of purposes, other than, of course, just being a wonderful vehicle for entertainment.
Yes.
And so we're going to speak about that a little bit now, specifically because of new reveals that came out this week. In particular, the brand new Unreal Engine 5 demo, which looks absolutely incredible.
It does. And listen, Sony put a lot of money behind this thing. Because obviously, as we know, Unreal Engine 5, number one, Epic is a PC-first company. But also, this was specifically meant to advertise the PlayStation 5's prowess, which is the demo itself is incredible, and it's beautiful.
Well, I mean, look, that is partially true. I think, let's be honest here, Epic did this for Epic.
Yes,
okay,
obviously,
they didn't do it for anybody else, but. There's a wonderful synergy here between Unreal Engine 5 and PlayStation 5. It makes sense. Look, I have a thing for numbers. So for me, when I saw this, I was like, you know what? That's actually really beautifully done. Now, where Edward is going with his train of thought is that a lot of gamers today are starved for next-gen information.
Yes.
We've had Microsoft reveal a fair amount about the Xbox Series X, and their event last week, which promised a lot of gameplay and which we already spoke about, didn't really deliver in the ways that people wanted.
Yes.
Now, Sony has remained very quiet and very mum about the PS5, with the exception of one singular deep dive last year and the reveal of a logo and the new DualSense controller. But that's about it. Nobody knows what the machine looks like. No one really knows how it performs yet. And we haven't actually seen gameplay on it just yet. Mm-hmm. Even the Unreal Engine 5 tech demo is exactly that. It's just a tech demo.
Yeah.
It's not real gameplay. So the reason why I think Edward and I want to speak about it, or at least why I want to speak about it, is As fascinating and wonderful as this tech demo looks, there are several things that gamers need to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, Unreal Engine 5 will only be available to devs in some sort of a retail fashion towards the end of 2021.
Yeah.
Which means what we're seeing now, midway through 2020, is only a very small taste of what the engine can do. Furthermore, because it's not in the hands of developers, it's going to be years before anybody's using the kinds of tech that the engine offers.
Exactly.
So, although it's cool and all that they used a PlayStation 5 to showcase it, it's not really indicative of what is to come. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
In addition to that, a lot of people gave Microsoft grief, and Ubisoft as well, over Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which Ubisoft says will be in 4K but might only be 30 frames a second. And people got upset because they were saying that Microsoft said that the Xbox Series X will promise 60 frames per second as a standard. Now, in my opinion, my understanding, and to clarify this a little bit, Microsoft wants 60 frames a second to be the new standard. But at the end of the day, it's up to developers.
Yes.
And that is perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't govern how somebody creates their game.
Exactly. Standards aren't defaults.
Exactly. Now, with that in mind, it's worth pointing out that sure, this was Unreal Engine 5. Sure, it's in an alpha state. And great, it's running on the PlayStation 5. However, it's only running at 1440p resolution and at 30 frames a second. So it's definitely something to keep in mind because the demo is incredibly impressive. And what is most impressive about it, other than the technology behind it, is how they've used temporal upscaling to bring the image to 4K despite the fact that the internal resolution is so low. Now, this is fascinating because I believe that the future of next gen is not going to be dependent on resolution.
Yeah.
Because of the technologies that are currently in the new game engine.
Exactly. It's you don't even notice or care about resolution. The layman gamer, they only want a beautiful game. They don't care about resolution as long as it runs smoothly and plays well.
Now, with that in mind, Unreal Engine 5 really is going to be quite a leap in what we can expect from future titles.
Yes.
And this is namely because of two technologies built into the Unreal Engine 5. The first being Lumen, which has to do with lighting the world. Right now, the demo that is available, and we will link to the video below, so definitely watch it, doesn't include ray tracing support. Not yet, but it will be when Unreal Engine 5 does come out.
Yeah.
With that said, it's incredible looking anyway. And the second part of the technology is what Epic is calling Nanite. Now, Nanite is what I think is going to be groundbreaking because it allows people who create movie quality assets to pull those in without any changes to the asset from its original form.
That's cool.
That means that they're speeding up the production process. And with that in mind, I actually wasn't aware that movie studios were using the Unreal Engine to power effects in TV shows and movies. I was actually quite taken aback by that. And when I found that out, it really just blew my mind a little bit because it proves that we're getting to a point in terms of technology where we can real-time render graphics and imagery that would have years ago taken us days to do, but now in real time.
That's actually amazing because obviously it makes sense now that you think about it, but something that I've never thought about is how the CGI in movies and the graphics in movies are powered. Like, I thought it was some professional software somewhere, and then you just put it in FilmMaker or whatever.
Look, for the most part, it is, okay? But what's fascinating with Unreal Engine is that they're trying to bridge that gap, where if you've created something in AutoCAD, you can now take it and just drop it into Unreal Engine. Instead of before, where you had to take it and render it at a low resolution, use less polygons, and so on and so forth in order to get it to work.
That's cool.
Something else that's super impressive with Unreal Engine 5 is that it's completely scalable. So although they're focusing on next-gen assets and technologies, it'll actually be available on every single device that currently supports Unreal Engine 4. So that means from Android to iOS through to the next generation consoles and PC. It's absolutely incredible.
It's amazing. On that note, porting to Unreal Engine 5 is also easy. It's completely backwards compatible. So developers who would like to do it can make their Unreal Engine 4 games, open in the Unreal Engine 5 system and upgrade their games completely for newer systems if they want.
Now, I love that, but you know what makes it even better? Is that Epic are actually allowing everyone to gain access to Unreal Engine 4 and thus 5 for free until your game earns over $1 million in revenue. Isn't that incredible?
That's super cool. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's incredible. It can get very in depth in terms of understanding more about Unreal Engine. So we will also link to a Eurogamer post about it. But I'd also like to just give a quick shout out to another local podcast called Checkpoint Chat with other local industry pundits. And I have a feeling that they're going to delve into this in far more detail next week. So definitely check that out. Now, something else that came out this week is new gameplay of Ghosts of Tsushima, a brand new title exclusive to PlayStation. And other than the fact that the game looks incredible, the reason why I want to mention it straight after Unreal Engine 5 is because when I saw the visuals, I was like, that Unreal Engine 5 demo was impressive. But damn, so is Ghosts of Tsushima.
Exactly.
This looks like a next-gen title.
It does. It looks really pretty. I watched a few of the videos. I didn't watch the actual PlayStation
State of Play.
Yeah, I didn't watch that, unfortunately, but I saw the videos afterwards with the full quality rendering and everything, and it's beautiful. It's really, really pretty.
One of the most unique things of Ghosts of Tsushima is how it reminded me a lot of Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
Like just an Assassin's Creed in Japan.
Yeah.
You know?
It looks super Assassin's Creed meets, I want to say, games like Red Dead.
Sekiro.
And it has Sekiro vibes purely because it's based in Japan, I think. Other than that, I didn't get Sekiro vibes. I did get super RPG vibes from it, though. Especially in the gameplay section where they show off the upgrades and the customization the Ghost will get. It looks amazing.
It absolutely does. And I think something else that I really liked from what I saw is how they're trying to make the world organic.
Yes.
In the sense of how generally in games, if you want to get from A to B, there'll be a marker on the map, or you'll see a reticle in the distance that you've got to follow, and so on. In Ghost of Tsushima, they actually use the wind, or you might see a bird or a butterfly or something.
Yes.
And by following those cues, you'll go to like a secret location or a new mission. And I really love that, to be honest. It's such an interesting way of creating an environment that's not only pretty looking, but is actually useful. Look, as cool as all of these things are, and I love the fact that new games are coming, and I've got a passion for Japan. There is actually a game that I know you want to talk about, which is also Japanese related, and it's about a subject that I love. So take it away, Edward.
Okay, so literally, so you and I spoke about a YouTuber called Based in Slot yesterday. Okay.
Yes.
And as we are recording this, that means we spoke about it on Thursday. And Based in Slot is a YouTuber known for dinosaur let's plays. So let's all get all dinosaur games.
I am naturally subscribed.
Yeah. Well, late last night, he released a new Dino Crisis video, which is one of the best Resident Evil style video games I've ever played in my youth.
Okay.
Now, this Dino Crisis Let's Play is unique because it's based on a mod called Dino Crisis Rebirth, which updates the game to modern day standards with 4K, high fidelity audio and video and everything. And it's based on the Japanese version of the game, but it also includes the arranged version, which is the US version of the game, which it just means that the items are in different places and the narrative is a bit different, but that's not a huge difference.
Look, that's fascinating because I love the fact that PC allows games to be modded for the most part, right? There's often large communities around some of the bigger games. Now, I'm a Jurassic Park fan.
Yes.
And of course, Dino Crisis features dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And we've just spoken about Best in Slot. Well, he also played another game called Jurassic Park S. And it's a fan-made rendition of certain elements of the Jurassic Park franchise.
Yeah.
You know, mostly the awe and wonder of, you know, being in the park and
Of
able
the
to see the
discovery.
dinosaurs.
Yes.
And yes, the discovery. And I love it. I crave, you know, I'm craving something like that.
After we spoke
To
about
play.
spoke about him yesterday, I went and looked at his playthrough, well, at least his few videos about that game, and it looks
Yes.
incredible.
Look, the strange thing about Jurassic Park S is, well, first of all, it's fan-made, but B, there's a really weird horror twist to it.
Yeah.
which I can't ever imagine really being in a Jurassic Park game. But what really struck me about it, and this is something that I spoke to Edward about as well recently, is how much it reminded me of Trespasser,
Yes.
which is a very, very old 90s Jurassic Park video game.
Yep.
And it was way ahead of its time. I mean, it featured unique elements like no HUD, and proper physics, and so on and so forth, which at the time computers just couldn't handle.
Yeah.
In addition to that, it was rushed through development because, you know, people wanted it to come out when I think it was the Lost World movie came out. And there was a lot of sort of history behind it. But regardless of the issues the game had, it was just incredible from the point of view where you had to survive on an island inhabited by wild dinosaurs. And, you know, if I think of what the gaming climate is like today, whereby we have many asynchronous games where it's humans versus like the Predator or Friday the 13th, you know, or other titles where it's 4v4, or just survival titles like Ark or Stranded Deep, there is a place for a Trespasser reboot.
Yes. On that note, Hans, so while I was researching Trespasser yesterday, after we spoke about it, I came across the most interesting little blog about Trespasser, the remake.
You know, it's interesting that you've only just discovered this, because I've known about this for quite some time.
Yeah. So apparently,
obviously,
this remake has been in the works since 2001, and it's gorgeous.
Correct.
It looks amazing.
The thing is, it's being developed essentially by a one-man team.
One person, yes.
And, you know, Trespasser, as I mentioned before, for its time was really cutting edge. And it included features and unique gameplay elements that some games today still don't even have.
Yeah.
So for one man to take it upon himself to completely redo it, you know, I take my hat off to him. Granted, it's been almost a decade, but I, for one, am intently keen on whatever it is he eventually releases. Because I, as a Jurassic Park fan, I want a Trespasser remake.
Well, this is the year of the remake, so you might.
Yes, but
get
you know,
something.
what would be nice is, you know, as I mentioned before in Unreal Engine 5, is how they're trying to bridge the gap between movies and making games. Well, if Universal Studios decided to eventually do this, they could literally drag the movie assets into Unreal Engine 5 and boom, Bob's your uncle, the easiest way to make Trespasser ever.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my lust for Jurassic Park games aside, this week something pretty cool happened, which we were a part of. Edward, please take it away.
Yes. So we're not allowed to say much about it, but all I can say is that it's Rainbow Six Siege related, and it's about the new operation called Operation Steel Wave. And it's amazing. Now, keen listeners would know that you and I spoke about this a few episodes ago.
In episode 2.
When we surmised about what operators might come to the game in the future. And let me just tell you.
Were we right?
We were almost on the ball. Almost.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So yeah, it's amazing. I can't wait to say more about it, but I can't.
So basically, stay tuned to Vamer's next week and you'll learn all about what we already know.
Yes.
Oh, and of course, Gettle podcast on Friday.
Yes.
I mean, we'll naturally speak about it.
We'll go into a deep dive on Friday on that. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking about deep dives and possibly traveling.
Oh, yes.
There is something cool that we both really want to speak about,
Yes.
also gaming related, and it has to do with Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and it's quite funnily enough, it's both of our mythological fortes are at show here. Have you realized? Like Egypt for you and Rome for me. It's amazing.
So what Edward's getting at is how in Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Ubisoft released sort of educational tours for each game, whereby you can go around the beautiful digital lands of Greece in Odyssey and Egypt in Origins.
Yes.
And while doing so, you can come across points of interest where a narrator will actually speak to you and tell you about the history of the land and, unique landmarks and things like that. Well, in an interesting move, Ubisoft is allowing gamers to download either the Greece or the ancient Egypt educational tours, not just for free, but also standalone, which is a first because these tours, as far as my understanding goes, used to be locked behind the season passes for each game.
Yep.
Well, now they're available for free until the 21st of May. So if you want to go and see what Egypt is about, or possibly even ancient Greece, yeah, you should check it out. We'll have a link down below.
Exactly. It's amazing. Don't be a Malacca and miss out. Okay.
If you don't know what Malacca means, it's a very dirty word, okay? It's very much Greek.
Oh, it can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, who knows? You might even find out a swear word in ancient Egypt, with the hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
Speaking of strange, I guess, words
and
or the way things look, and hieroglyphics, you all know we spoke about xylitol last week.
Elon's baby name.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes, I meant Zashatel. Okay.
Zashatel, yeah.
Well, we just have a quick update about that, right?
Turns out half of what you said it could possibly be true in that word in Zasha 12. So
what?
Yeah. So obviously you were gonna lead on with we learned how it's actually pronounced, and
yes,
according to Elon Musk, it's pronounced X-A12. So literally the X is just
12?
an X and the A12 is just A12. So Exasha 12, I guess you've been pretty spot on us.
No, well, I mean, okay, fine. If for me, if it was changing the X to like a Z sound like xylophone.
Yeah.
Zasha 12, but I guess X Asha 12.
Yeah,
I
don't know.
Look. If you're wondering, listeners out there, if you're listening to this and also wondering what the hell, that doesn't make sense, you're not alone.
Yep.
There have been top linguistic experts who have looked at the name and have outright said that this is unpronounceable.
It is. It's literally a password.
This is not even like trying to get some sort of Greek Roman numeral or some Egyptian
hieroglyphics
and trying to decipher it. This is just an unpronounceable word which doesn't follow any normal rules in any language currently on Earth.
Yep. It's literally language of the aliens.
X Asher 12, good luck.
Yeah.
We wish you well in your future life.
Yeah, if you're listening to this from 20 years from now, we're sorry. But at least in today's standards, it's not great.
Listen, okay, we all spoke about years ago, like Gwyneth Paltrow's Apple and some of the other stars' names, but really, X Asher 12 is just on another level.
Yeah, it's
well, I mean,
there.
Listen, this naming scheme is in line with our future robot overlords, so
I can see that. Like, we're well on the way there. Skynet just needs to take over now.
Right? Did you see that news about the robot dog?
Yes. I was gonna mention that. Like, so what Hans is speaking about is this robot dog from Boston Dynamics. Now, these guys are known for developing all these robots you always see on the news and on YouTube.
And of course, Boston Dynamics is not to be confused by Massive Dynamic, the same evil robot mongering company from the TV show Fringe.
Yeah, it's well, at least we wouldn't know yet. But Boston Dynamics, they've been making a bunch of cyborgs and robots, and the newest headline from Boston Dynamics is that the robot dog called Spot,
which looks like a death machine. Okay.
So obviously we can't show you guys, but he pretty much looked like those robot dogs from the Black Mirror episode, Metalhead.
I just want to speak about that as well. So
Yeah.
I mentioned in a previous episode, we recently watched the new War of the Worlds remake.
Yes.
Well, in the show are literally these dog robots which were brought by the aliens, and they kill people. So I'm just going to leave that out there.
See, this is why the robot overlords will be all against us, because we portray them as negative. Gosh.
Yeah, but have you seen people kicking them in that?
Yeah.
You know, to test their stability. Of course they're going
Like,
to think we want to
down,
harm
boy.
them.
Time to put Spot out. Gosh.
Okay, anyway, you were saying, so Boston Dynamics have created Spot. Why? What's the purpose here?
Well, he wants people to distance themselves socially.
Yes.
Yeah, so pretty much he's been going around the pathways of the Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park. And
Where's that? In Singapore?
I think so. Yes, it's in Singapore.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he's been broadcasting a message saying, and I translate, for your own safety and for those around you, please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you. And he's just been
Well, at least it's not
prancing
shooting
about
you if you don't comply.
for now. Listen, if this is going to turn into some RoboCop dystopia, I'll be the first to admit that I love my robot overlords, and XA12 is my savior.
Which is our new leader, yeah.
Yes. I just want to put that on record.
Listen, that is fascinating. So they're already using these robots to get people to social distance themselves.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's like in Dubai, they're using the drones to sanitize the walkways and the buildings and stuff.
That's wow.
Yeah,
what a fascinating time to live in.
Yeah, the technology is amazing.
That's incredible. Well, do you know what I would like to socially distance myself from?
What?
Facebook. Okay.
Won't we all, Ant?
So the next segment was actually sent to us by Sean and Andrew from South Africa. And I was genuinely shocked when I saw this because I somehow missed the news that this was a real thing. And I know I sent it to you too.
Yep.
And you were pretty flabbergasted as well.
Shocked F.
So there's this setting on Facebook called off Facebook activity.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't sound nefarious, all right? But it really is. Essentially, what most people don't realize, and I didn't realize this, is how Facebook is tracking more than what you do on Facebook.
Yeah.
Now, I do understand how retargeting works, you know, where, like, let's say, for example, you go and you visit Amazon, you are looking up a new video capture card, which is something that I've been doing recently.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're browsing other websites, you see adverts for capture cards. That's sort of how retargeting works.
Yeah,
of course, if you have ad blockers and you don't agree to cookies, that kind of thing should be lessened, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mr. Zuckerberg is doing exactly the same thing with Facebook. The difference is that the option is so far hidden in Facebook settings that you wouldn't even know to look for it unless you were specifically told.
Yeah.
And what's even more shocking about this is that I'm assuming that just by having a Facebook, you've now agreed to these terms and conditions.
Yes, that's essentially it is.
It's just there. You know, you don't even have an option to opt out.
Exactly.
So both Edward and I actually went and looked into the settings, and we also did some research to determine if this was a genuine, you know, cause for concern, because, you know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen. I highly advise all of you out there, if you're interested, to go into your settings and to turn off your off Facebook activity, because let's be honest here, Facebook doesn't need to know what you're doing outside of Facebook.
Exactly.
Just because I've gone to go and read the latest Eurogamer article on something that interests me, by no means is something that Facebook needs to know about.
Yeah. And Facebook even deters you from switching it off. There is a button to clear your past history and a button to toggle your future tracking off. And
exactly,
if you click on toggle future off, you get a warning that says, "Oh, but then you won't be able to link any apps to Facebook anymore."
So basically, you won't be able to use Facebook to log into places, right?
Exactly.
That's what that's essentially
Exactly.
means.
And also,
It's
if
such,
you
I'm sorry, but
link-
and excuse me, but that's such a dick thing to do.
exactly, that's super dick thing to do.
But that's where Apple's coming in, right?
Yes. So yeah, instead of logging in with Facebook, just I don't know, log in with Apple and get an
Assuming you
anonymous
have an iOS
email,
device, because
or just create one with the company you want to log in with. It go through this few extra steps, and then one day when you're tired of it, just delete your profile from that one.
Look, what we'll do is we will link down below to an article about exactly how to do this. And if you are worried about what Facebook has access to and whether or not they should have access to future information, please check it out.
Yeah.
We did sort of allude to it early on in this episode, how the fight for privacy is going to be the next big civil action in the coming years, especially when it comes to governments. Now, we're not going to talk about it too much now. I'll just allude to it, I guess. Especially in South Africa at the moment, there's a lot of civil unrest to a degree because people are upset about how draconian the government's being.
Yeah.
Now, we understand why they're doing what they're needing to do, but there's a fine line between saying, okay, you need to stay at home, and, well, you're only allowed to buy these kinds of clothes. That is a very, very dangerous precedent to set.
Yeah, it's like Handmaid's Tale kind of precedent.
It's exactly like that. Like, I mean, it's one thing to say, stay at home, don't transmit the virus. But now to tell me that, okay, well, we're only going to allow you to buy these kinds of clothes for winter, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
All winter clothes should be available. Don't tell me that, oh, I'm only now allowed to buy boots and long pants.
And
for
also,
example.
if I want to buy flip-flops, I'm damn well going to buy flip-flops.
Well, exactly. There's no need for that. And that is actually what's happening. Now, look, of course, this is a discussion for another day. It is a very long and lengthy one, and we'd have to do a little bit more research. But just, leaving that as our ending thought, I guess.
Yeah. On that bombshell... Do the Top Gear thing.
Well, I know what I'm going to do straight after this. I'm going to go and clear my Facebook history.
Yeah, I'm literally going to go through the apps it says I might lose access to and see if it's even worth it to register with them again and delete everything else.
No, look, honestly, people really shouldn't be using Facebook to log into anything.
Yeah, it's
just
so necessary.
Either, do what Edward says. Just register directly on the site with your email and a randomly generated password with a password app, please. Don't use things that can be guessed. And just de-link Facebook from everything because they already have far too much information.
Yeah.
And they're selling it. Let's be real here. Behind the scenes.
Like,
I mean, if the Cambridge Analytics data scandal wasn't anything to worry about already.
Not that. It's like every second week we get another scandal from Facebook. So
it's because Zuckerberg is an alien/robot from the future.
A lizard
and he's
man.
now being caught out.
Yeah. Like,
what if he is Asher 12 from the future?
that boy crazy. And I hope that's not the case.
But could you imagine though? And he's just pretending to be Mark Zuckerberg.
Listen, that's scarily like teetering on realistic future fiction, okay? And
well, we'll leave you with that conspiracy theory note to end off the episode.
And on that note, have a lovely day.
Have an awesome weekend. We'll see you all next week. Cheerio.
Bye, guys.